as I was approaching this decision, I'm evaluating, you know, how much pain I can handle versus, uh, I'm surrounded by love in my life and support.
Yes.
Uh, so I didn't want to give that up. I've got a great life. Uh, and then on top of that, here recently, I've got into a relationship that feels very, very important. And it came out of nowhere, and it uh, kind of blindsided both of us. And, I don't want to put the weight on weight of the world on a relationship,
Mhm.
but there's definitely an incentive there to hang around more. You know what I mean?
Welcome to Sacred Space, where healing, growth, and connection unfold through the power of sacred mushrooms in community. I am your host, Courtney Rose. My journey with sacred mushrooms spans over 11 years. In 2015, my husband Eric and I were arrested for our work with psilocybin, one of the most challenging experiences of my life so far, and one that deepened my commitment to building community with the mushroom. Since then, I've co-founded the world's first public psilocybin retreat center and now Sanctuary Church. Through it all, I've learned this truth. Authentic healing begins when we open our hearts to ourselves, to each other, and to the Creator. This sacred space honors the transformative stories of our members, each a testament to the sacred power of psilocybin. Join us as we explore what it means to live intentionally with this ancient sacrament. Our journey together begins here, and I am honored to walk it with you. Hey, Jason, thank you for being back in this part 2 of our conversation around spirituality, mushrooms, and this life and beyond. A little preface for our listeners. Some of you listening may have listened to part 1 of this episode and may have not expected a part 2, but we're back with a part 2. There's been some evolution and from our previous conversation. And so I'm really looking forward to speaking with you, Jason, about your journey since we last talked a few weeks ago. So thank you so much for being back.
Courtney, it's not just your listeners that are kind of surprised by part two. I'm surprised by part two. I genuinely thought that our last conversation was our last conversation, and so this is still a little bit of a shocker to be here right now, honestly.
Yeah, I can only imagine, first of all. I mean, it's just blowing my mind. This whole process with you is just blowing my mind, as I mentioned in the last episode. But for me, sitting here right now, like I know in our last episode, our part 1, our last conversation, I mentioned seeing death as going from one room, walking from one room to another room, and mentioned like wondering how I was going to see you again or meet you again. And yeah, I thought that was our last conversation. So I'm kind of in the twilight zone a little bit right now, feeling like, well, here we are. This is how I'm seeing you again. So yeah, could you share a little bit more with those listening about what led you to this trajectory, making the plans that you made? Last time we spoke, you were preparing for a sacred mushroom ceremony with some people really close with you, some community members and family and friends. And then following that, your transition process. I'll just generally speak to that. So could you share a little bit more about what you were feeling and thinking in those plans?
Yes, I mean, I've been for the last several years kind of, um, doing ceremonies, worship ceremonies, taking out whatever lessons seem to be appropriate, and then trying to kind of like reorient life accordingly. And kind of just feeling my way, learning to do this like continuous trustful into the future, and it felt like I was being pulled toward a door that I couldn't see. I could feel my body shutting down. I could feel, um, my kind of my letting go happening, right? Uh, it started happening at a rapid pace where I could feel it happening very, very quickly. And I was like, oh, shit, I got to get my affairs in order, you know? And, started the estate planning, started all these different things. Um, but the pain level seemed to be rising faster than the breathing stopping, So I was worried that I was going to reach a point of the pain exceeding my kind of my capacity to handle,
Mhm.
which I've reached before. So I made a determination years ago that if my pain exceeded my navigate, that I would just simply stop fighting and essentially stop eating and drinking, you know,
Yeah.
let the body take its course. It might be difficult to tell on camera or whatever, but I'm a quadriplegic. I was given like a 10-year life expectancy about 30 years ago. So I'm beyond my shelf life, from that perspective. Um, so I've been kicking this body along for a while. So for me, letting go isn't necessarily, uh, it's not me just giving up. It's me. Well, maybe it is me giving. I don't know. It's me allowing, nature to take its course. I've been resisting for a long time.
Mhm. So so you've come when we last spoke, that pain level was pretty high for you, from my understanding. Um, and from my understanding, weighing the pros and cons of I know there were certain options for you to have certain procedures, maybe a number of procedures. Is that correct? In order to continue living on, in the body that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, there's additional procedures they can do, but
Mhm,
they're such high risk with such little reward,
mhm,
um, that for me there's a balance where it's like, okay, it's enough. That's enough.
mhm, mhm.
Procedure. That's enough. Manually trying to my belief systems evolved to a point that I do see myself as a spiritual being that's you know um, you know using a pretty dinged up method of transportation.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense to me that that would be, a very logical next step, considering, like you said, the risks far outweighing the rewards, and as far as having all the procedures you might need to have in order to continue living on and maybe decreasing your pain level, maybe. Um, but yeah, that sounds like it was a pretty big gamble, and so it makes a lot of sense that you would be planning for your exit out of the body that you're in. Um, and I mean, as we talked about in our last conversation, preceding that exit, the stopping of eating and drinking, with a sacred mushroom ceremony just is a pretty revolutionary thing, I feel like, for a lot of people to think about and even try and imagine what that might be like to eat how many grams of mushrooms were you planning to eat?
I think I did 6, I believe.
Okay. Which is a pretty big dose for most people. A lot of people call that a hero's journey or a deep dive or however you want to put it. Generally, a dose that size. A lot of people have a mystical experience, um, talk with God, meet other beings. Not always, but a lot of the time. So to have that experience and invite in people close with you to be with you in that experience and then start the process of transitioning, which can take 7 to 14 days. Is that right? When you stop eating and drinking?
S
That's a pretty special way to set all of that up. So we talked a lot about that in our last conversation, and that was a few weeks ago. And so since then, you've had this mushroom ceremony, invited those close with you into it. And so I'd love to hear more about what that experience was like for you that day. If it was what you expected or not, just whatever
was
comes up for you.
it wasn't at all what I expected. In fact, if I had to put odds on my changing course or adjusting the timeline, I would say like 99 to 1 that I would keep the timeline. It felt like it was so certain that that I had no doubts about putting the things in place. In fact, I remember calling my mom and saying, hey, you need to talk to the attorney sooner than later. I could feel myself like almost falling out of my body at times, and
Hmm.
and so I was certain that I'd reached the end. Um, but the point of the ceremony on the 19th was basically, um, for me, it was I was trying to go without expectation, where it was like, okay, just continue to guide me, right? And part of me was hopeful that maybe some kind of change in direction, because
Nice.
I've got a good life, you know, except for the pains, a little, but that I've got a good life. Um, and so, do you want to know about the journey itself, or
Yeah. Yeah. If you could talk more about what that experience was. I mean, I know that there was a on-site kind of a preparation discussion from my understanding with those that were there. How many people were there with you?
there was I believe 5, plus Eric and Debbie, uh, to help kind of facilitate and keep everyone safe.
Mhm,
And yeah, there was preparation. There was kind of going around the room discussing intentions.
mhm.
Uh, it wasn't too formalized, but it was kind of just a grounding effort.
Mhm. And this was
So
in your own home
yes, yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
In my home, I'm sorry, yeah, I forget that
That's okay.
some of the specifics aren't known. Yeah, it's in my house. We basically, convened in the living room. I've got a deck that so we can go outside and sit outside if we wanted to. Oh, one of the people in the talk, one of the neighbors got a little funny, but uh, anyway, uh, we tried to stay pretty much in the home or real nearby, not
Mm,
me, obviously. Um, but yeah, it's a comfortable environment. We put Desert Dwellers on, which is just a soundtrack kind of focused on,
mm,
you know, not facilitating these journeys, but just I don't know, just a pleasant, non-vocals, instrumental sounds like nature, stuff like
mhm.
that. Uh, to create an environment conducive to just allowing this experience to happen.
Okay, and so that was the setting, and you say you had little expectations going into it. Your intention specifically was, could you remind everyone what
My,
your intention was?
my intention was to come without any preconceived notions, hoping for guidance on, am I, is this path exactly where it should be, or, you know,
Mhm.
am I,
Okay.
it was a gut check, what I mean? It was like, all right,
Mm.
yes.
Okay. Gut check. Love it. So, and not to mention that there's a documentary being filmed with you as a part of this documentary and this dying process that you've been going through. So not just this session, this mushroom session in particular, but other experiences leading up to it and your plans to stop eating and drinking following it. So there's also a documentary team there on site as well, which doesn't seem like a small detail to me either.
No,
What was that like?
this whole experience is fascinating. Yeah, we decided that we wouldn't have any cameras during the ceremony itself
Mhm.
because it can influence the ceremony. Even if you try not to, you get everyone's permission. It has an impact. So we decided we would allow recording up to kind of starting the ceremony and then exit.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. So they recorded the preparation of the tea, the kind of the discussions around attention, something like that.
Okay. So they left, the documentary team left, and then it's the 5 folks, including you, and then Debbie and Eric. And so, ev uh, now so 5 people eat mushrooms? Is that right?
Yeah, so 4 or 5,
Okay. Well, a handful of people.
4. Yeah,
Uh,
4. I'm sorry.
okay. Yeah. Doesn't have to be exact, but just to, like, generally, I'm trying to, like, set the scene here for everybody. Um, so some folks eat mushrooms, and then there's a couple people, who are holding space, so Eric and Debbie don't, partake, it sounds like. And so then what? Where do is everybody staying together, like, in the same room in the beginning when y'all right after you eat mushrooms, or what was that like?
Yeah, we started off at the living room. We each hit the mushrooms. They started coming on quite quickly. Part of it was fresh, part of it was
Mhm.
dried. I happen to have some growing in the office, so Eric suggested we're going to need those too. So
Very nice.
yeah,
Very
I did that, but worked
I
out
love
well.
fresh.
Uh, and so I don't know if it was because of the fresh or just because of the closeness of everyone there, but it felt like they kicked in like almost immediately.
Mm.
Normally there's like a ramp up period.
Mhm.
But it was fascinating from the very beginning, uh, because there was like a playfulness to the ceremony that was. I looked to the left. And Amber was to the left of me, and like I could see divinity in her eyes, right?
Right.
And then I looked and there's Eric, and it looked like the like mental conversation I was having with Amber jumped to Eric. And then it looked like that same conversation jumped to Debbie. So each person I made eye contact with, it was as if, it was as if there was this playful, like, okay, we're going to learn some things today, you know?
Mhm.
And, and, there's, so part of it started off kind of playful and then went into like a deep, uh, I was clearly working through some things. I could tell that, my facial expressions Felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. There was, all these things that I could feel. Um, and then that moved on to uh, almost like a guy. All right. Let me know if you can hear anything in the background.
I can hear some background noise, but
Yeah, I'll try to ask her.
it's okay.
Anyway, so then that led to almost like an evaluation of showing me it's hard to put this stuff into words, but almost like almost like I was looking at a spreadsheet and saying, okay, you have this many resources, this and that, kind of showing me uh, how my life, what I thought was complete, it was showing me that it was, that I was allocating my time too much to a certain level of responsibilities, and that I was overburdening.
Mm.
What, you know, I wasn't exactly on the right path. You know what I mean? So it was like as if I needed to go through what I went through in order to drop the burdens I needed to drop, in order to spend the time where I needed to spend it. Is kind of what came of that.
Mm.
It was again, these things just don't translate into words very well. But the outcome of that was more of a, you know need to move on a day-to-day basis without taking on the, my habitual nature is to take on and like weigh my self-worth based on what I'm doing, accomplishments and such, right? And so it was a clear indication I needed to set those things down. And the only way that I could set those things down was to be forced to set those things down. So it showed me that the steps up to this point were necessary, but now it was time to just kind of go with the flow, you know? And so then that turned into like a wrestling with ego, because now you've got all of these things in motion, and you've got you know a film crew documenting your death, and you've got all these things in place, and I'm not someone that cries wolf, right? And so then it's like okay, well, what about this obligation to follow through on your word, right? You just scrap your word, so it turned into this like wrestling with ego for a moment, you know and so it was like a great lesson in setting all that stuff down, trusting, that continuous trust falls apart. And it's not easy, like no aspect of it, right? But the more and more I'm doing that, the more I feel in life. you know? And like the thing I've been trying to get rid of this entire time is this pain, physical pain. And that's become this barometer that helps me to navigate. And it's like a highly tuned barometer. It's like as soon as I am tempted to take something on, my pain goes. If I'm if I'm not, like right now, one of the things that kills me the most is sitting at the computer. But right now my pain's fine, right? Because this is what it's supposed to be doing, apparently.
Mm.
But so it's almost like this finely tuned uh thing that's serving me well. I still don't like it. I don't like the pain. I don't want to get rid of it. It slows me down. Right.
Okay.
It's also a great.
Wow. Um, so yeah, for those who are listening and don't know Jason well, like you said, you're quick to want to help and see where you can help uh, when it comes to forwarding something you believe in. I mean, that's how you've shown up in Sanctuary so much, serving on the board for over a year, attending lots of meetings, being very active in troubleshooting and strategizing. in developing programs and with our Sacred Passage program. And then I know outside of Sanctuary, you've worked with a number of organizations, helping them, serving on uh, boards and consulting and just helping, like Fireside Project. And you've kept your plate very full for a long time, many, many years. Um, and so now, I mean, I feel like this is so applicable, this lesson that you're sharing. It's so applicable to so many people right now because we're in this society of productivity equaling value and self-worth. And I feel like a lot of us are waking up to what productivity actually means, how that actually how we show up in our lives, how that is what that is actually in service to. And there's this redefining going on in our society about that actually resting, the shift towards like resting is actually a productive thing to do. And seeing those the impacts of taking things away from our lives can add so much more to our lives. So I am personally right now really like soaking that in, what you just shared. So it sounds like the message was to do that you have by setting yourself up to transition to do this stopping eating and drinking process, um, and that be your way to die. You've had to do all these things to clear your plate to prepare for that. And that now your plate's kind of, you've taken care of all these things that probably most people don't do before they die, is my understanding anyway. Um, that's like the cultural norm. But you've actually done those things. And so now your plate is more free to actually live.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, um, it's amazing because the concept of like a samsara, this thing that holds you back, that tethers you to the world. I now view my house, my commitments, my secrets I keep. All these things are things that keep me tethered here, right? And they weigh me down. And I didn't realize how much each of those things weighed me down until I was forced to let most of it go. And then as this kind of lightness comes over me and a sense of possibility and things like that, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, now I can move forward and just be much more careful about what I pick up. And it's just it but it felt like all that stuff was necessary. Like I had to pick the stuff up in the first place and I had to put it down in order to experience what it felt like to do that. As I look back over life, all the things I thought were mistakes just mislabeled. It's like they served me in a way, you know.
Mhm.
I broke my neck. I did all these things, that I labeled that as a shitty situation, right? But it's also been an excellent teacher.
Understandably.
Yeah, but it's I don't want to minimize that. It's been very, very difficult. But um, the rewards that come from my ability to empathize deeply with people and it's all, I think, proportional to how much I've suffered, you know?
Mhm.
And so, and my skill level at navigating life, well, I don't want to prepare to have any kind of skill, honestly. It's like, but I feel like my ability to navigate situations is proportional to what I've been through, right? So I've developed a very kind of core confidence that I can make it through whatever, and if not, that's okay too. It's like, and so there's it's almost like this bulletproof sense of being where things are becoming more and more fine regardless of what happens.
Hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of, that's a huge gold nugget right there for all of us listening. If you can break your neck, go through the process of being quadriplegic and continuing to succeed and find the silver lining in all of that, get to this point of the pain being approaching too much to live, and like still being willing to surrender to what is being offered to you, surrender to life, which from my perspective, that's what I'm seeing you doing right now. Like this continual surrender process. Um, it feels very empowering for me over here listening to know that that's possible for someone to continue to do. Um, wow, Jason. So, okay, so you had this experience with the mushroom where the mushroom delivered this message to you, shifted your perspective about your plans. Sounds like you thought about not canceling because you're the kind of guy that doesn't cancel on plans. But I think if you are to ask for a rain check on anything, it's death. I think that's very justifiable reason to cancel. Um, so what happened when you were coming out of this experience with the mushroom? Were you talking about this with the people around you?
Yes, I mean we had an integration session the next day. I believe that was recorded, so I don't know what we'll make that into the documentary. But yeah, where we sit down and each was kind of talked about what came up, and um, it was funny because as like that evening, I talked about it a little bit, um, but I didn't have enough figured out. You know, it was like it was still just too murky. There's
Mhm.
too much and then even the next day when we were talking through it from an integration standpoint, um, I was surprised that I was pausing like in real time. So as we were talking about it, it was as if the universe was speaking through me, and I was hearing it at the same time everyone else was. You know, and it was kind of like, okay, need to move to a day by day, da 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 da. And I'm over here like, oh, I guess we're doing that. You know, if it was kind of it's just this, uh, almost as if I was just the observer of what was going on, and and even now I feel more and more like an observer of what's going on than the author of what's going on. You know, and I'm trying to it might sound ludicrous, so I'm trying to like get out of the way of that happening. Or get out of the way so that that can't happen. Um, I'm not very skillful at it yet, but I can feel at times the idea that the universe is doing the speaking and that I'm just a guy you see in the mirror. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, that's easier said than done. Um, because like you said, I mean, there's all these things to do. Like even when it comes to preparing to die, there's all these things to take care of and for Jason to wake up and figure out and do, or that's what it seems like in the moment. And these seeming choices that we have to make and communicate to our loved ones about. So, yeah, that feels really, easier said than done to recognize it's not actually us making the choices.
The thing, and I want to be careful to not imply that I got anything figured out. So I do not. There's this there's this growing sense that, kind of like you hear in a lot of Eastern traditions or traditions in general, that just doing the next right thing without worrying about the outcome seems, feels important to me. And like for whatever reason, I'm wired to plan, right? So I will go through and make this like very detailed plan, or I'll work with people to put a plan in place, whatever else. Uh, and that feels appropriate at that moment. Um, but also it feels like the more I can detach outcome from that. So in other words, if I can do the planning without, regardless of what happens, is the outcome, that's the appropriate thing to do at the moment. And then I can let that plan go if necessary, kind of like what ended up happening.
No.
Um, all these things in place, that all these, plans put
Mhm.
forth, and everyone else was impacted. They planned accordingly, yeah, and whatever else. And then my responsibility was to just let that go. You
Mhm.
Uh, and that felt appropriate, and that is so. So what's been wild though is I've had conversations with people afterward about how this impacted them. Because one of my things I worried about was that all these people, came in, they rented Airbnbs, they did, all these things to come in and support me through this, right? And now I'm jacking all that up, you know? So, so I was kind of curious, I'm like, well, yeah. But I mean, like, I bet caregiver staff, and they're thinking they don't have a job. You know what I mean? There's all these things, right?
Mhm.
So I started having conversations. Okay, how is this impacting you to different people around me? Because I genuinely wanted to know. And it's been actually wild how this has actually positively impacted people around me. It didn't it doesn't seem disruptive. I don't think it's something they were just telling me to for me to not worry about. Like,
Gotcha.
what are the caregivers did?
Mhm.
She was out of a job, right? Uh, she's a grandma. She's been, takes care of her kids, and all the takes care of her grandkids, and
Mhm.
not quite a lot. And because of this whole thing, she got an apartment an hour away from here, really thinking that she'd have jobs. So it turned into a situation where she went down to one shift a week. Uh, now she's helping me one shift a week, but she is ecstatic about the direction of her life because now she's an hour away, far enough that the kids can kind of take care of themselves,
Mhm.
to take care of her grandkids, not rely on her so heavily.
No.
She has more autonomy. Uh, it's helped her to examine her life and priorities, whatever. She's still close enough to come in for a shift a week, so she's able to maintain the connection with the team here. So she's thrilled about what happened. And it's
Mhm.
all the catalyst for that happening. I keep having these conversations. My brother came in and worked remotely and all these things, and talk about how we got to connect for a while. Uh, there's just been so many things that were uh, side benefits to what I thought was going to be a shattering of my uh, reliability. You know what I mean? My ego sense of okay, Jason's a planner. He's somebody to rely on in this way. It has turned into such a positive impact on the people around me,
Mhm.
and that wasn't part of the plan. But letting go of the plan resulted in that.
Mhm.
This whole
Yeah.
thing, you can't tell. This whole thing is still just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. To plan, and it's like, because you're not saying, just fly away with the breeze and don't, plan for anything, or, just kind of be subject to whatever happens, and, don't take precautionary measures. Like, rather it's like, well, yeah, like, it's one foot in both worlds. It seems like we're here, like, you're here, so make the plans, but then realize that we are not in full control, or maybe not in control at all, but there has to be a letting go uh of the expectation that comes from the plans. I love what you're sharing about that relationship between how we act in the world based on how we perceive other people will be affected, and how wrong we can be about that. Um, just hearing you talk about, like, seeming like you're surprised that other people have greatly benefited from this whole process that you've been going through, including, like, them having a big shift in what they thought was gonna happen. Um, there's just so much I just feel like there's so much goodness, so much juice to extract from that, example. So you're sitting in the integration circle and you're talking about your experience with the mushroom the day before, and just, like, processing what's coming through you. Was it apparent to you at the time? Were you voicing that y you don't think you wanna go through the stopping eating and drinking? If it was just a few days later that you were gonna do that, right? That you were gonna
Yeah, I
start
mean,
that
we
process.
planned the ceremony's on the 19th. We were planning to start, or I was planning to start the voluntary stop eating and drinking on like 21st. So this is the 20th that we're doing the integration. I'm saying that, okay, maybe tomorrow's not the day.
Yeah.
It was definitely a shift. Um, and I believe it caught most of us it caught me by surprise. Um, yeah, that's kind of how it unfolded.
Okay, so and now there's at this point, like, I'm thinking, okay, well, if you're shifting the change of plans, then my next thought would be, or not that you are shifting the change of plans, but that the plans are changing. Um, my next thought is, okay, well, what about living with the pain from now on? But it sounds like there's now this a little bit of a reframing for you and what the pain is communicating with you. So have you been experiencing less pain?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, um, as, as I dropped responsibilities and I got my affairs in order, my pain started to diminish, uh, and then it kind of like plateaued. So around the 19th or so, it was reaching a point where it was starting to. I was feeling less like I was just going straight into the ground, and more. It was becoming more manageable. You know, and then ever since then, it's been improving on a day by day basis. So I mean, my appetite's better, my breathing's better, my pain's lower. You name it, and which blows my mind as well. Because I think I looked like hell, probably in our last interview. I don't remember, but I was feeling like really rough.
Mhm.
Um, but as I've gone on, and as I've lowered my stress, lowered my just kind of like settled into life, and now now my days, instead of measured by how productive I am, it's like how well am I being? How well am I? How often am I noticing the present moment? How often, um, and it's a practice, but it's almost like I was forced to drop all this other stuff in order to focus more on this practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you're talking about that, I'm thinking of how amazing it is that our bodies are this, as you said, a barometer, like a guiding system for how in alignment we are with, I don't know, I'm sure it could be interpreted a lot of different ways, but maybe with our higher self or with our true self, our purpose, current purpose in life, or however you want to put it, but that our bodies are guiding us consistently. And that pain, when we're having pain, it's just another example for me of when I'm having pain, it's not that I need to get rid of the pain. It's it's a nudge for me to take a step back and feel into what the pain is trying to tell me. Um, so I'm just imagining you throughout the day, kind of like, I'm trying to think of some kind of metaphor here, but going to do something and just like feeling out that feedback that you're getting from your body. It sounds like a meditation, pretty powerful meditative process.
Yeah, and again, I want to be careful not to have anything figured out because I don't. But it is feeling like the more um, I kind of become the observer. I'm noticing pain. I'm noticing my gut, and I'm noticing this anxiety coming out of nowhere, or whatever else that's nudging me along this path. And it feels more like surfing than it does me driving the boat. You know what I mean, or me steering the ship or whatever. And I think that a lot of that has to do with like losing that fear of death and fear of consequence. Because um, as I've as I've become okay with whatever the outcome is, the less fearful I am about these catastrophic outcomes, right? And so then that allows me to navigate in a more, as we're going in this direction kind of attitude, you know,
Mhm.
you know, but uh, a navigating a real world navigation standpoint, by lowering that stress level, you actually kind of increase your IQ points, right? So you're probably making better decisions anyway. If you're thinking, with your logical eye, you're going to make better decisions if your stress level is lower. So I think it's a combination of listening to the body and then also, you know, evaluating what's going on, but being clear headed enough to evaluate what's going on. Yeah. I don't know the answer. So,
Mhm. Yeah. What comes to me is these different parts of us that we lead from at any given time, like leading from our head versus leading from our heart versus leading from our gut, our intuition, and how there's this ongoing flow of leading from these different places, and each leading from any given place has its place in time. Um, but having that balance can be really nice. Not always leading from our head, checking in with our heart, checking in with our intuitive sense.
and the mushrooms are
Sure.
so hard with that because going through the dying process in these mushroom spaces. And I believe I shared with you before that one of the things that brought me to the mushroom was pain. I was trying to figure out how to get rid of this pain. And the mushroom showed me that there's a beauty and purpose to pain in that it's articulation of my current skill set.
Mhm.
And like reframing the pain and then also losing the fear of death, and these and dramatically impacted the way I navigate just moment by moment, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. I've had very similar experiences with the mushroom for sure. So, can we can we talk about love for a minute? Because I heard from a little birdie, and you just share how much you want to share. But I just heard from a little birdie that love may have impacted some of this shift in plans for you. Is this like, could you just speak to that a little bit, however much you're open to doing so?
Well, it's fascinating because as I was approaching this decision, I'm evaluating, you know, how much pain I can handle versus, uh, I'm surrounded by love in my life and support.
Yes.
Uh, so I didn't want to give that up. I've got a great life. Uh, and then on top of that, here recently, I've got into a relationship that feels very, very important. And it came nowhere, and it uh, kind of blindsided both of us. And, I don't want to put the weight on the weight of the world on a relationship,
Mhm.
but there's definitely an incentive there to hang around more. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so it definitely um, impacts. All right, how much pain am I willing to live through versus the quality of life?
Mhm.
When you more on the quality of life standpoint, you can now struggle with low pain, right?
Mhm.
The fascinating aspect is that the quality of life has gone up and the pain has gone down. So the delta between is increased,
Mhm.
So, so it's fascinating, and it's been great practice for both of us because we both expected me to not be here, right? Uh, so it's been a fascinating practice of living in the moment and trying to appreciate impermanence. And right now, it was just a very, very surreal practice there, and it's caused there's been some shifts as far as, okay, well now if I'm going to be around longer, how does that impact distance and how are we working things out? Yes, so there's a lot going on. She's
Mhm.
doing back into town tomorrow. Um, um, things seem to be going well, and we care a lot for each other. It's uh, feels very, very real. It feels very real from a spiritual standpoint, not just a physical
Mhm.
standpoint. It's like, so one thing that's nice about that is it doesn't feel like there's any risk. Even if I do die, it's okay kind of thing. You know what I mean? I want to stick around,
Mhm.
but there's a deep connection there, so.
And it sounds like you weren't exactly looking for someone.
No.
I mean, would you have ever imagined that at this stage in your life, you would be meeting a romantic partner on whatever, on some level? Did you ever imagine that would be a possibility?
I mean, this is definitely, surprising to me. Um, I was in a relationship before, that, you know, she died. That was in like 2007. And, I kind of put that part of my life aside. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I'm just focused on all this other. So I've become okay with not being in a relationship. to a point that I'd probably be tough to deal with. You know what I mean? Because I've become very set in my ways and such. So I've kind of pushed that that notion out of my mind. So this is definitely surprising to me. It's definitely an adjustment. Uh, it's a practice in just being openness and seeing how flexible I am. I'm getting older. I'm not, wasn't planning on changing a lot, but so it's definitely interesting.
What did the mushroom in the mushroom space, did you get any communication about what what this is about? I mean, having someone, you two coming into each other's lives at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I'm trying not to put the weight of the world on this relationship. Um, and I don't want to speak or apply anything from her perspective,
Mhm.
but from my perspective, there was definitely a connection that feels planned. You know what I mean? It was like the timing doesn't feel uh, definitely there's a lot of synchronicities going on, you know, and like during the mushroom ceremony, I could feel a depth of connection. Like this has been kind of forever in the works, and I'm just now being let in on the secret, or whatever.
Okay.
Um, it's definitely a fascinating one, and going from um, thinking that I was checking out and giving up everything and everyone and everything, and completely losing the comfort zone and all that, to now on the other side of this, where my responsibilities are minimal.
Hmm.
It feels like there's a sense of possibility that's like limitless. Uh, it's a fascinating shift.
Yeah, to say the least, I think. Um, and that specific part of this process, for you meeting someone, like having this greater quality of life, as you said, and less pain, and not only that being a testament to the power of love and the power of the heart and connecting in this such a special way with another human being and how impactful that is on us, but also, to me, the power of letting go, because you're in this epic letting go process. You have been for many years, but especially it seems like in the last few months. And this is when this person comes into your life, and just kind of highlighting that for everyone listening, not just specific to love and romantic love, but love in life and what we're doing, and how sometimes for me, like, I'll just speak for myself, I can get really attached to the outcome and the specific how I want things to be. And when is that going to happen? Dang it. Like, I'm ready. I want it. I want it now. And it seems like there's this pattern in my life of when I want it and I want it, and then I keep wanting it so bad. And then I get to this point of frustration about it. And then I'm just kind of forced to let go of it. Like, ugh, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to let go. It's not happening. So I'm going to let go. And then that's when it happens. It's this. repeating process that I witness within my own life. And so that's kind of from over here. One thing that comes to me is you're talking about your journey here.
One thing I didn't mention whenever you were talking about the relationship aspect, one of the biggest concerns for me when we first started talking was, I worried about how this is going to impact her, right? Because I'm dying, right? So coming out, I mean, to get too close to me is kind of a dangerous prospect.
Mhm.
It was uh, so we talked through quite a lot about, and I promised a lot of heartache, a lot of, pain down this path, this path, It took a little while to work through, trusting that she can make her decisions, right? And then as much as I don't want to hurt someone else, trusting that another person has the autonomy to take the path, that's appropriate for them. So I know I kind of circled back to the relationship. I was thinking about that as we continue on the discussion here,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
this some impermanence from the perspective of the guy that's dying isn't necessarily a problem, but the person that has to continue on, that can be a pretty heavy burden to carry, right?
Mhm.
That was an interesting thing to wrestle with, and still kind of is. Um, Trusting that, you know, just kind of allowing her to make decisions that are appropriate for her.
Yeah. I can totally see how that would be being the very caring and thoughtful person that you are, being something that's a prominent thought for you. Just wanting to look out for somebody you really care about. And it's very relatable, extremely relatable. I was just talking with someone yesterday who was saying that I'm in this authentic relating course. And so we get paired up in breakout rooms. And um, he was sharing, this person I was paired up with was sharing that his wife recently shared with him that, uh, you know what, like you're always trying to take care of everything so much that y- you're rarely ever making space in your heart to do what you want to do. And it makes it harder for me to give myself permission to do what I want to do. I just wish that you would do what you want to do more so that I can like get that like energetic permission to do that for myself more. And so it's not the same scenario, but just like highlighting um like there's just a lot of power in what you just shared there. And throughout this entire conversation, really, this trusting this inner guidance system that we each have. And when we do that, when we continue to do that, it seems like things are just more in flow for us and for the people around us, that we can model that when we're doing that. And there's this, yeah, this energy of trust and flow that we emanate and that you're emanating right now as I speak with you. That's really pretty inspiring for me.
Well, I appreciate it. It's funny because people will look at me and be like, I'm glad you made this decision, or you know, give me credit for anything, right? And I'm feeling less and less like there's a me here to protect or to give credit to, which might sound flaky, but like I constantly look away from the screen because I relate less and less with the dude in the mirror. You know what I mean? It's like that. I like the more open, just like a sense of happening is going on.
Mm.
And I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it feels like the more I tune in from that perspective, the smoother things go.
Yeah.
And also try not to allow too much to land here, because whenever I get credit, whenever someone says I'm doing something correctly or something, ego wants to kind of soak that up, right? And then that becomes this thing that tethers me. And he's weighed down by, I become weighed down by this ego, right?
Then
And so it's constantly trying to just, one of the members of church talked about it like a graceful, just acceptance of a compliment, but letting it go versus allowing it to kind of cling to you.
I like that. So, what about your family? What are they what are they feeling and saying right now as this shift has happened?
Well, I think, they're still very aware that I'm not healthy, right? So it's not like I'm out in the woods or, this is a done deal, Um, I'm doing much better today. Um, but it seems like there's a definite appreciation for the days that we've got, because everything since, late October has been a surprise in many regards,
Mhm.
on, on the deck, on a beautiful November evening. And, my brother, Lance, we was commenting. He's like, man, he goes, this is much better a couple of weeks than I expected. You know, we're just hanging out, laughing and having fun and all these things, when that was, still that is still counter to the plan. But without putting that plan in place, it wouldn't have happened, kind of thing. I believe there's a thankfulness. There's a, I don't feel any sense of I jacked up their plans. You know what I mean? It's like they know I wasn't doing it to call attention or to, you know what I mean? It's a human effort to navigate the day. Um, so I don't feel any sense of, feel nothing but joy.
Mm. Yeah. I know that it seems like some of your family was a are a or were a not a fan of the mushroom or, you engaging
Mm.
with, communing with the mushroom, and then B, not a fan of this plan to stop eating and drinking. Um, and so I'm curious if that's been talked about yet at all, like.
Well, first off, you're correct. I mean, there's a broad range of correct support or anti-support. You know, well, not even not anti-support, but like no one was actively trying to stop it.
Okay.
Um, but there was a very clear message from some that this is a sin, this is wrong, this is, you need to reconsider this, you need to, these things. So a very heavy kind of guilt laden, response. Uh, and so that was an exercise, from like my side of just, uh, letting that go and allowing them to have their perspective and trying to be okay with that, based on everything they've learned in life, that's the perspective they feel is most appropriate. What they're saying is the most appropriate perspective. From my perspective, the guilt and the shame and all that is, uh, not necessary, you know. So I think that while they're not excited about the way I use mushrooms, not use mushrooms, but the way I eat with mushrooms and the way I'm kind of navigating life, they're thrilled with the outcome as far as, this choosing to move more on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What a ride. So n so now what? Like, what's in your do you have any plans for the next few months? I mean, anything that you're feeling like, okay, now I need to figure this out in this way, in this way? Or,
It's very, very little. I mean, I planned before I started this whole thing, I planned to take my nephew skydiving in the spring. He turned 18, so that's going to be a cool little thing, right? And it'd be the second time I was tossed out of a plane, which would be a blast. But then this whole thing, started going downhill. And so I made arrangements for him to be escorted there with my brother and a couple of others. So it was going to turn into almost like this memorial, a fun little, gathering.
Right.
Uh, now that my plans have adjusted, the timelines adjusted, now I'm starting to make plans more incrementally. Um, like I just rented an Airbnb yesterday, to go to Indianapolis for early December, which is for me is a big jump.
uh-huh.
First off, to make any plans that far out, and then second off, to feel like I might be able to actually travel. It's like it's a mind warping thing, right?
Yeah.
So then that's kind of now I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll be around this spring. I don't know. I'm trying to not make the plans very far beyond my nose. Honestly, it's like I'm just
Uh-huh.
doing it's fascinating because it's like necessitating this. You know, if I wake up today or wake up tomorrow, do something with it.
Yeah.
Plans, but be okay with them falling apart. And you know what I mean? It's like, so no, I'm not planning too far ahead. And the plans I do make are all very, very tentative. It's just like, well, maybe, you know,
Yeah.
and they're trying to find joy today, trying to,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I look forward to things. I try not to. I try to stick in the moment more, Uh, the person we've been talking about, we remind each other to kind of tune into right now,
Uh-huh.
you know, pretty frequently throughout the day. And, it's a fascinating ride.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, I'm just still I can only imagine how you're feeling with it because I mean, I had in my calendar a day of prayer and just like just connection with your spirit. Um just that my this calendar alert went off like a few days ago. Because I thought you wouldn't be here in this way. So and now we're here doing this and so this is a huge reminder for me to be on that razor's edge, that like just that give and take and that flow of life and that each day is a surprise and that feels really good for me. So thank you all, God, universe, whatever you want to call this thing that we're in. It's pretty cool. Maybe we'll do a part 3. I don't know.
So it's, it'll probably be the exact same as this one where I just like have no idea what the hell's going on. And over day to day, it's like,
Yeah.
what are your plans? Like, I have no idea. Today's good. So we're talking,
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this episode for anybody listening?
I mean, I'm so happy to see you, Courtney. I mean, you and I have always, uh, we communicate on more of a professional level. We're always trying to
Yeah.
whatever else. Like even now, it's like, okay, we're, this agenda, let's get, this recording done. Uh, but I so appreciate you and all the life you bring. Yeah. The way you continue pushing forward, the example you set, and, you know, Just appreciate you.
Thank you. That means a lot. Even though it's not me, Jason. Don't you go appreciating me too much. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. That feels really good to hear. And yeah, likewise, just feels really good to be here with you. And I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you.